I'm just a Michigan-made girl who survived major trauma after major trauma. I moved all over the country in the United States, north, south, east, and west. But it wasn't until I found myself wanting to end my life right smack in the middle of the country that I realized I could no longer run from the pain of my past. I needed to heal it so I could have the future I deserved and longed for. Now I speak on multiple stages and pages about how to turn your tragedies into your triumphs. Here I have fantastic specialists and guests to help me on that journey, to help people not only around the country, but now around the globe. I'm a speaker, podcaster, coach, and author, but most of all, I am now a victor in my life. And now my mission is to help you find a victor in you.
Welcome to Multiform PTSD. Here's your host, Tracy Lowry.
Like many of us, Sandra Cooze has gone through some traumatic experiences in her lifetime, but she learned the importance of how to use those traumas to learn how to heal, and then help others do the same. We talk about how she handled multiple assaults and abuse from the men in her life, and how she was able to then finally open up to the man who is now her beloved husband. How did she do that? Today, she shares her story, how she overcame those obstacles, and how she's helping others through the spoken and written word. Please help me give a warm welcome to Sandra Cooze.
Hello, Miss Sandra. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Truly, I'm glad we were finally able to connect. I have to ask you, what's the image behind you?
That's a prosperity mandala.
Okay.
One of my little art projects.
So you did that?
Yes, it's a stencil and it's paint, and you can see it, but it's glitter all over.
It's
I'm a
beautiful.
glitter girl. Thank you.
It
It
is
was a lot of fun, but don't ask me how long I cleaned up glitter around the whole house.
That. Me and my friend did glitter. We thought glitter would be a great idea one year at prom, and the door in the house I grew up with was just plastered with glitter.
Oh no.
My mom was like ready to burn it down.
Yeah,
and
I don't blame her.
we had your intro, but I want you to go ahead and jump right in. Tell us your story. We're talking about, traumas and triggers and recovery and things like that. So why don't you go ahead and give the listeners a little backstory of where you came from and how you got here?
Okay. So I grew up in Germany.
Okay.
Because I should start with, hi, I'm Sandra. I grew up in Germany and met my husband online, and love brought me here to Canada.
Okay.
Now, everything that happened to me happened in Germany.
Okay.
So it started when I was 12. I was molested by a stable master, which was, it was so sad because I loved horses and my mom made it possible for me to take care of a pony. And then all my dreams were crushed by an old man who could be my grandpa.
Right.
But luckily, my mother believed me when I told her about it and took me out of the situation. Sometimes I go back in my mind and think like, what if I hadn't told her? What if she hadn't believed me? Where would this have led? But I stopped myself because we really don't need to go there.
Right.
So then when I was 14, I was sexually harassed by a hotel owner who was chasing after me, trying to touch my breasts, and didn't care that I screamed no and tried to run away from him. He thought it was a game.
Oh.
This went on for about 30 minutes until my parents came back. They were looking at hotel accommodations or something. We're basically family in this hotel because we went there for so long, so often.
Really?
I love the place. Running to my mother then and crying because I was terrified. I was like, I said no and he wouldn't stop.
Right.
And she tried to downplay it a little bit. You laugh it off like, you can't do this to my daughter. She doesn't understand. You don't mean anything by it. Things like that. Now, as a child, I felt completely dismissed. Now I understand my mother's own trauma with men, not being able to speak up and speak her mind around men. So that solved this issue.
Right. But at the time.
Yes. At the time I felt completely dismissed.
Right.
When I was 16, I was bullied in school for a year from my class and the neighboring class. And this is actually something I'm still slowly working through. I still have things come up that I suppressed, but it's okay. I know how to deal with that. And it was
kind of a layer. It just kind of comes in
yes.
layers.
Well, that's what trauma is. It comes up in layers and we release it in layers.
Right.
And that's okay. But when I told my grandma about being bullied and not wanting to go to school, she said, just ignore them. They will stop. Yeah, no, they didn't stop.
Yeah, no.
They were spitting spitballs at me. They were kicking me. They were calling me names. And the worst thing that they did was I was writing a letter to my pen pal about having my first boyfriend, being super excited and happy. And they stole my letter and distributed copies throughout the whole school.
Oh my.
Yes, felt so embarrassed. It was unbelievable.
I'm sure.
But I got through that. Then when I was 21 in the workplace, I got sexually harassed again by a waiter. I was working in a hotel, doing my education there. And he always came into the changing room when I was changing because there were no locks. And no matter how often I told him to leave, he just stood there, leaned against the closet with a smirk on his face watching me. And one day I was in the ladies' room and my mom called. So he brought the phone into the ladies' room and handed it to me underneath the stall. Who does that?
Right.
But yeah, so I was glad when my education and tele business was over.
I'm sure.
Then I was always looking for Prince Charming. I mean, which girl doesn't?
Right.
So I went on a first date once and we went to an Irish pub. It was nice. There were always women walking around with roses in their arms and they sold those roses. And he bought a rose for me and I thought it was the sweetest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Until not 5 minutes later, he takes my hand and puts it on his crotch. Not fun.
No.
Then when I was 22, I was raped by my then boyfriend's best friend. And with the rape not even being the worst thing, my boyfriend then said, well, he's my best friend. What do you want me to do?
Oh.
Yes. So I was dismissed yet again. Then I went to see a psychologist about 2 years after the rape because I just didn't like the person I had become. I was down. I was, afraid to go out. I didn't know how to react around men anymore. And
right.
I went to see a psychologist, talked to him for an hour, and he looked at me and said, I think you already worked through it all. What am I supposed to do? Yes. Okay, so I said, fine. I don't get any help.
Oh.
And that's it. So about a year later, I went out with my friends. I said, okay, let's go out. I have to go out again at some point. So we went into a Cuban club. And I loved the music, the rhythms, and I was like, hey, sure, why not? So I was asked to dance by a young Cuban guy, and lo and behold, I was sexually assaulted on a dance floor because he held me so close that I could feel his man parts push against my female parts, and I felt the growing and the moving, and I couldn't push him away. And as hard as I tried, he just held me closer and closer. And the thing is, my friends saw how I was struggling and they said, well, why didn't you just push him away? Like they laughed it off. And I was like, really? So yes, life wasn't easy growing up. Yeah, that was it.
That's enough. I mean, no, a lot of repetitive things there that I could see why it would kind of bring you to feeling dismissed as an adult. So were you ever able to get a counselor to listen to you and try and help you through that? How were you able to kind of work through those traumatic experiences and able to trust a man again?
Well, it was a journey. Yes, I did see a counselor here in Canada, but it was just a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So I've already been releasing most of the trauma by myself. The interesting thing is when I came back from the psychologist, I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I had just hit rock bottom, literally. I was like, I reached out for help yet again and again. I was dismissed from the one person who was paid to help me.
Right.
And so I was like, that's it. But the thing with rock bottom is once you hit rock bottom and you say, I give up, you open the doors for the actual healing to come in, for the actual thing that can help you. And for me, that came in the form of a friend who was very spiritual. And I love this day when he was standing in my living room, seeing how miserable I was. And he just had his hands on his hips with a stern face and said, get a quartz crystal already. I was like, what? Excuse me?
Right.
Yes, it helped. It was very interesting. To give a quick explanation, the quartz crystal is also called a poor man's diamond because energetically it's as powerful as a cut diamond. So that being said, the quartz crystal is basically filtering out negative energy and guiding positive energy in.
Okay.
And I felt that. I took it to bed with me for 3 months and I really started to feel how things were moving. And I didn't really remember what came up, but in the mornings when I woke up, I always felt lighter. I felt better. So that was only the beginning of my healing journey and my introduction to spirituality. Then the second piece of the puzzle I got from an ex-boyfriend, my last boyfriend before I met my husband. So we were dating for 2 months. And then just like the pattern, I always broke up because what I didn't know by then, I was always sabotaging the relationships. But he was saying that he had just been in a relationship with a woman with mental issues and he didn't want to have another one in his life. He didn't say that mean, he just stated a fact. And I'm so grateful he did, because this really made me look at myself and reflecting on the relationships. And I saw a pattern emerging that I was doing. Like everything went great until it started to get serious. And then I started to sabotage myself by questioning everything, by calling constantly because I always wanted to know where they were. I was afraid of being left alone. I was afraid of being used and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So then I said, okay, I don't want to be this person anymore. Before I have a new relationship, I want to be a person that I like to be with. I like to be.
Yes.
And that must have shifted something with him because 3 months later, I met my husband.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty quick.
It is. Yes. Who knew?
No kidding. So how did you do that switch? Because I'm thinking now of so many people that I know might be listening or that I talk to where they feel the need to always be with somebody and they always have to have a partner, and being alone just they can't even handle it. They always have to be with someone for that validation, and they're kind of the overcalling and the over zealous in the relationship, like you exposed. I used to be the exact same way, but it sounded like you kind of went, I just need to learn to love myself by myself. And then the right man came along. Can you maybe help someone who's in that place right now, who always feels the need to be in a relationship and always have the next one lined up before, breaking up with the current one? How did you do that? How did you find that self-love and enjoy being with yourself by yourself? And then the right man just came along. How did you do that?
I stopped looking. When someone says stop looking and the right one will come, it's actually true. Here's why. It's because when we're looking for someone, we have a specific image in mind. But that image may just not be what the right person for us looks like or behaves like. I always looked for that rogue, that one with the devil in his eyes, and yeah.
Right.
But then I married a man who was exactly like my dad. And that was the right person for me.
Right.
So, but the thing is, as long as we're looking for something specific rather than allowing the person who is meant for us to come into our lives unconditionally. And this may sound like woo-woo or magic or nothing. No, this is just our mindset, allowing ourselves to take a step back and allow the person who's meant to be in our life come into our life.
Right.
That's how it was for me.
So how did you meet him then? Can I ask?
We met online.
Okay.
was actually quite cute. We were, my aunt was just moved to the States. My uncle was in the Air Force station in Germany. And when he retired, they went to the States and built their house to be with closer to my cousins. And my sister and I wanted to meet my aunt and uncle and stay there for a few weeks in the States. So I went on one of those Yahoo clubs called Romantic Rendezvous.
Okay.
And I just left a message saying around this time I'm going to be in the States. Who wants to hang out? When I told my aunt, she threw a fit. She was like, "Are you crazy? This kid is a psycho." Well, yeah, I got some very shady messages and very,
Yes.
I don't want to go there.
Yes.
And his message was, "Tell me when you're coming. If I'm here, I'm going to show you what you want to see. And if not, I'll find someone who will." And I thought, okay, that's half decent. So I replied. And so we started chatting back and forth. And then we exchanged a picture. And then we started talking on the phone. And when we met in person, then it was like, I just knew. That's him. I just knew. This is the thing. When you meet the right one, you just know. There is no question. There is no doubt. Right. And the beautiful thing is when you meet the right one, there is no way for you to bend yourself like a pretzel. Because we always try to be what we think our partner wants us to be, because it's not the right one. That's something I learned. But with my husband, I never needed to be anyone other than myself. There was never the need for me to be someone else. And that's a pretty good sign.
That's a very good sign. The online dating world can be a very hard place for those of us who have had rape or sexual assault encounters. How were you able to sift through that and trust your husband that he wasn't one of them?
I didn't. But
fair.
Because it was the only one that wasn't suggestive.
Right.
The others that were all suggestive, like, "Oh my God, please come by and let's have some fun." And I was like, no.
Yeah.
So I took a chance. And the thing is, yes, I guess I was lucky. One try and I got married 3.5 years later. But yes, it's a scary world out there. That's very true. And most people I find who do online dating are the ones who have been hurt so many times, hurting from meeting them in person. So yes, there are so many people with trauma who are just looking for love, but don't see that in order to find love, they have to start healing what's broken within them.
Right. So let's move forward a little bit. Your business is Rise Above Your Story. And it sounds like maybe there was some personal experience in that title.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Where did that name come from? And what is it you do?
Well, where does the name come from? I always loved that poem from Maya Angelou, where she says, "I rise." I love this because it's so powerful. You're rising up. And I was working with a friend of mine, a great coach, to work my message into my business before it had a name. And so I was like, okay, my past is my story, but it's only a part of my story. And then I was seeing myself in my mind in front of a stage, like TEDx talk or something like that. It's still a dream of mine. I'm still working towards it.
Yeah.
But I was working with the crowd and I was talking about trauma and how it encases us. And I was like, so now imagine your trauma like a box that's surrounding you. And now stand up and leave the trauma where it is. And you're standing on top of it. How does that feel? And I saw myself doing that. And then I was like, okay, stand above your trauma. It sounds weird, but rise above your story. Now that is powerful because that's what I did.
Right.
So, and I think this is a very powerful message, rise above, because the story is something that never changes. What happened to me never changes. It will always be there. It's the constant. But I am also a constant. There's two constances in this scenario, what happened and me. I can change. The story doesn't.
Right. I love it because you're absolutely right. You can't change the past, but you can change you. You can change what that past means to you. You can change what that past is going to catapult you into in your future. You get to decide that. Your past doesn't. So I love that so much. So tell us a little bit about your business and your mission.
Well, my mission is to demystify trauma, because trauma is not what most people think it is. Because when we think about trauma, we think about what happened. Now, as an example, I love the analogy of the paper cut. So let's say you cut your finger on paper, the most annoying wound you can ever have, right?
Yes.
Or it bleeds, you clean it, you put a Band-Aid on it and go about your way and hope you don't have to cut onions. So
or hand sanitizer.
Or salt.
Killer.
Yes. But the thing is, after you took care of your finger, you forget about it. You move on with your day, and well, the body's going to take care of it by healing it.
Right.
But the body is self-healing. So why don't we heal emotional trauma? First of all, I don't recall any doctor ever telling me my body can heal my trauma, emotional trauma, ever.
Right.
So then we focus on the story, which would be the same thing as if you would all of a sudden be terrified of ever touching paper again. If you would ever go back to the moment and receive that paper cut and play it back in our mind over and over and over again, because the finger was traumatized the moment it received a paper cut. It's trauma.
Yeah.
But we don't see it that way because we know the body's taking care of it. But our self-healing ability is like a muscle. And we have to work this muscle so that it can do what it's supposed to do. The body doesn't care if it's a paper cut, a broken bone, a replaced kidney, or emotional trauma. The body is self-healing, but by staying stuck in the story, we don't allow it. We don't give the body the chance to do what it's supposed to do. It's like ripping off that scab from the paper cut over and over again.
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's so difficult. Why we can't just say, okay, I heal the trauma, because we're stuck in a story.
Right. I love your analogies. You've got great analogies. Yes.
I had a long time to think about those.
I personally think that when we are the people who have learned how to heal the trauma and how to turn that around and rise above our story, I like to say level up. I feel like we can be some of the best teachers of teaching others how to do it. But I too believe that our bodies are self-healing. And the reason that we heal physically maybe easier than we do emotionally is because we continue that story in our head and we stay there. The nurse in me says we need to have that diagnosis so we know what we're treating, but that doesn't mean you need to hang on to it and use it as your rally cry, or to keep you in victim mode, or even as a weapon against others and how you feel they should treat you or not treat you. It could really change that dynamic. I feel like you need to feel it, move through it, recover through it, and then move forward and kind of make a new story or a new chapter of your story.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The thing is, we have been, for generations of a generation, brought up with trauma happens to people and you just deal with it. You move on with your life.
Right.
So we have never been taught how to heal. And that's what I want to change. As an intuitive trauma coach, trauma release coach, I help people release their trauma, and I teach them how they can move through the triggers on their own and release them by themselves. I use modality called traumatic incident reduction, which I think is the best kept secret in trauma healing world, because it's amazing and no one has ever heard about it. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. So go ahead and kind of fill us in. What is that? How do you teach people how to do that?
Okay, well, the road to trauma healing really is trigger release work, because PTSD is in essence nothing more than an intense trigger. we're being triggered by something in a very intense way, of course.
Right.
But it's just a trigger. And to heal the trauma, we have to work with the trigger. So let me give you an example of something that happened to me not too long ago.
Okay.
My husband and I, we were playing an online game. Okay. It was World of Warcraft Classic. So, and for people who know this game, you know, it's not a game of winners and losers. You all get from level 1 to level 60. Depends how much time you need. So we were starting to play, and we were in different areas. I was a couple levels ahead, and then my husband caught up in record speed because he has been playing since he was little.
Oh.
I didn't know about online games until I met him.
Right. Okay.
He just surpassed me, and I was triggered so much. I was sitting there bawling my eyes out. I was like, what the heck is going on? Because of course he's better than me. I mean, he had so many years of experience.
Right.
I don't know, I was just sitting there crying. And my husband was like, what's going on? I was like, I have no idea. I'm just crying. I felt like a complete failure. I felt like a loser, like I don't amount to anything. Like whatever I do just fails. And I was like, this has nothing to do with the game.
Right.
And so that when we went to bed, yeah, I woke up at 4 a.m. and my heart was aching. So I went up and sat on a couch, and I was like bawling my eyes out for a good hour. But I understood I was releasing something. So it was like, okay, how am I feeling? Because oftentimes when we're triggered, we don't even know what we're feeling. Right. We just know we have that feeling in the pit of our stomach, or just our heart hurts or something.
The reaction.
So I had to understand what exactly I was feeling. And I felt like a complete failure. I was like, okay, why? Where is this feeling coming from? And so then I followed the feeling. And I was like, okay, where did I feel like this before? Some memories from when I was a teenager and then when I was a child. And none of these were really traumatic, but they shaped how I saw myself.
Right.
And then I understood where this was coming from, why I suddenly felt like this, because I was always seen as the second whistle. As an example, I was, of course, doing my education hotel business, so I had learned how to fold napkins in the most beautiful ways possible. Mm-hmm. And my sister, she was always very creative. No one knew that I could do this, but well, I didn't either. But then she was always seen as a creative one. Okay. And so my grandma, she always loved to throw big parties. And she asked my sister if she would fold the napkins because she always did it so beautifully. And I was like, well, hello, I learned this in school. Oh. And she was like, okay, you can help too. You know, like this dismissive, like and always being told, like, you'll find your talent at some point, and not being good at anything. And that was the trigger that I was releasing, because I just needed to prove that there was one thing that I was better at.
Right.
That was always in my life. And that's when I realized that it popped into my mind how often I told my husband, well, I can't do anything right, can I? When I was upset about something he didn't like. Then I understood that was the same trigger.
Right.
You know, but by following it, I could get to the root trigger and understand it. And then with that, I released that trigger. It wasn't necessary anymore. Because the trigger just shows us what we need to heal.
Right.
And that's the roadmap to trauma healing, is follow the trigger. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of what you see. Follow it, understand it, embrace it, love yourself, and let it go. That's all.
You make it sound very easy. It may be that simple, but not necessarily easy. Some of the healing that I've been through, I've been asked kind of the same things, like, when did you feel that the first time or the most prevalent time? And so many times I would go back to, like you said, something that just wasn't that big or traumatic, and you kind of thought you forgot about it for years, and all of a sudden you're like, well, that's stupid, that can't be the reason why that's a trigger. But trusting yourself and your intuition, knowing that your body knows where it all comes from, and your psyche knows where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And trusting yourself. That I had to learn that the hard way, because I would be going through and I'd be like, well, that wasn't a big deal. Well, but at that age, at that time, for whatever reason, obviously it was, and my body was showing me that that part needed to be healed. And I think, especially to those who maybe work in the same general field as we are, as far as coaches and self-help, educational people, I think sometimes, I know I'm really bad at, if I'm having a bad day or a bad moment, I don't want anyone to know, because I don't want people to think that I'm a fraud, or, that I'm a failure, I guess, probably, because I'm the coach. I should have all the knowledge and I should be perfect at everything, right? No. Heck, I'm still working through layers as well. Like you said, that just happened not too long ago. I'm working through one right now in this last week. Another layer pops up and you have to kind of work through it and peel it. And quite honestly, I think it's a lifetime journey, that there's just going to be layers that are going to continue to come. But the happiness and the freedom that comes from working through those layers makes all the difference. And because I was asked once by a client, if this is a lifetime journey, why am I trying if I'm just going to have to continue to keep trying? And well, because it makes your journey happier. It helps you get rid of that weight and the extra baggage, the parallel of, if you're carrying a backpack up a mountain, how many rocks do you want in that backpack? I'm unloading that backpack. I'm getting rid of the rocks on my way up. I'm going up to the top of the mountain with that backpack no matter what, but I might as well get rid of the rocks in the back while I'm at it. Make it lighter, make it easier, make it more fun. So I think that's a great analogy. I think it's important also for those of us in this role as well, that are helping others heal. We're always doing our own healing as well. It just comes by layers.
Mm-hmm. The trigger release work that I do, yes, it is difficult in the beginning, but only because it is weird to really look at yourself, to look for the answers within yourself rather than blaming someone else.
Yes.
But once you feel comfortable with interrogating yourself, it gets easier, because you understand that what you see is ready to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you understand it and you release it with that. Now, usually when I have triggers come up, I feel like a headless chicken. I'm completely ungrounded. I can't find my focus.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then shortly after, I have a day where I'm bawling my eyes out. And then I up leveled and everything is just flowing as it should. So it gets easier. The beginning is only getting used to looking at yourself.
Right.
And once you get that down, the rest, get into the groove of things. You will say at some point, wait, something else to come to release. Finally, let's do this. Let's get rid of it.
Right. Yeah. You almost kind of look forward to it instead of dreading it.
I wouldn't say look forward, yes, but I wouldn't dread it.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now let's say I welcome it and say, okay, good.
Right.
And for a reason, we're coaches and healers for a reason, because we want to help people. So the more we can heal in ourselves, the more we can help others. Every piece that I could release in myself gave me an aha moment I could pass on to the people I coach. And they, in turn, with this aha moment, they release a mindset belief. And it's amazing to see how fast that is.
For sure. So we kind of spoke in our correspondence before, and I think we were kind of touching that. So many times I too have kind of this history of trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. And I had myself in a pretty dark moment where I finally was like, what gives? Why me? Why did all of this happen to me? Let alone, just one of these instances. Why all of these? And I got really negative. I had horrible self-talk. The whole world was against me. And, it was just a really bad place and bad mindset. I had myself in victim mode. And the answer in one of those self-reflective times of why me, I heard the answer come back, so you can help others. And it made me realize that I had to go through all of those different types of trauma and abuse and horrible situations. So not only could I help people, but I could meet them where they're at and know where they're at to a point where they wouldn't have to necessarily describe it fully. I could describe it to them. So, this is probably where you're at. I get it. I understand it. Let's lift you up from there. It made my job easier and more fulfilling because I understood it wasn't just something I read in a book or, learned for a test. I had been there, done that. And it sounds like the same for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm often coming across this question. If there was one thing in your life, you could go back, would you do anything different in your life? And I always say, no. I would go through the whole damn thing again, just because I know what I'm doing right now and I love it.
Right. Yeah. And you wouldn't be able to help, or at least I feel we wouldn't be able to help as deeply and as well.
No, we probably would be doing something completely different, have a 9-to-5 job and like everybody else.
Right. Yeah. And if that's for you, then that's for you, but
not for us.
It's not for us. No. I totally agree. Let's talk a little bit about why it's important to get out of that victim mode and into rising above your story. How can someone do that and why? Think about the listener that might be in that deep, dark place right now, not sure they even want to try anymore because they've just been beaten down time and time again. Why should they turn around and get out of victim mode and turn their story around? And how do they do it?
Well, I can tell you on the other side of trauma, it's amazing. I feel so free every day. It's incredible feeling, you know what you've been through and it doesn't faze you anymore. It's just a part of your past. You can do whatever you want. You can reach heights you never thought were possible. There are so many things waiting for you that you can do. And the freedom, the peace, the love that you have for yourself, and the pride you have for getting through this, coming out on the other side. This is priceless. It's so worth it. And trauma is really just like a blanket that is really laying above who you really are. It's a layer you can shed. It's nothing that defines you. Trauma is not what defines you. You are.
Yes.
So trauma is just something that happened to you, but it's not something that has the right to control your life. And you have every right to kick it to the curb.
Absolutely. How would you tell them to do it? What would be like the first step or two to being able to get out from underneath that trauma blanket?
First, I would say read my book.
All right, let's go there. What is your book? What's it about, and how do they find it?
Well, my book has been published in February. It's called Journey to Yourself: How to Heal from Trauma, written by someone who did.
I like that.
And thank you. And in it, I share, of course, my story, everything and how I overcame it. But then I pick trauma apart. I look at it from every angle possible so that you really can understand what trauma really is. And then I have exercises, room for notes, challenges in this book. It's really a book that works with you. It gives you suggestions on what you can do, how to release it. And I use my own story to really explain how trauma works and what I realized, the aha moments I had, to really explain everything. Beautiful. And I've got some great feedback from my book, which makes me really happy. So Good. A lot of people really like it.
Good. How do people find it?
It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Kobo for Canada. I think that's it. Or from my website if you would like a signed copy. I still have some here.
Awesome.
My website is riseaboveyourstory.com. Okay. Very easy. Very easy.
Very easy. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like there's a lot of people right now who are kind of in that really dark, mucky place. And that's why I'm so glad that you are here to join me in trying to help lift people up out of that mucky place. And wherever level you're at, you can always, what I like to say is level up. Even if you're in the lowest of lows, you just work at being not the lowest of lows, a little less lower. I know when I first had decided, okay, I'm going to give this whole healing thing a go and I'm going to try. I used to be very much a go hard, or go home. Like I give it my all or I'm not doing anything. And so I really felt like I could go from the bottom of the barrel to elated top of that mountain in one step overnight, basically. It doesn't work out that way. True healing.
You were setting yourself up for failure. That's typical.
Yes, I absolutely did. So that's when I finally came up with the level up, whatever level that is. Just worry about stepping up a level or two at a time. And, and there's going to be, even when you're doing that, you're going to slip down, you're going to fall down a couple stairs. But like you said earlier, it's like a muscle. So once you've already done that healing, if you slide down a little bit, it's not going to take you that long again to get to that level. Your body already knows. It'll get there quicker and easier, and then you can continue up. Everyone has a bad day. And that's one of the things I really would like to get out is, even when you're in the middle of PTSD or a trauma or being triggered, I know I would go through times of, man, I thought I was doing so good, and today is just not a good day. And I went back so far, and maybe it's even a whole week that just isn't going well. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has bad weeks. It's not necessarily that I'm backing up in my healing process or in my recovery. I'm just having a bad day, and everyone has them. So a little bit of grace can go a long way too.
Very true. All our emotions are valid.
Yes.
And trying to not feel something, we're suppressing. So even if the emotion is bad, it's okay.
Yes.
It's a good thing when the emotions are bad, because then you can observe them and can say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? Always looking at the why, because we always feel the way we feel for a specific reason.
Right.
And then one thing that I noticed on my trauma healing journey, it's not about the big revelations you have. It's about the things that make you go, little things. Things like the big breakthroughs, aha moments, everything just falls off of you. No, look for the little things. That's what really will help you heal step by step and at your own pace. And it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's so worth it.
I totally agree. And it's not a race, and it's not a competition. Like you said earlier, a lot of trauma people will say, I didn't have it as bad as some. It's not fair to compare, because trauma is trauma, and everyone's trauma is different. And what may have been really traumatic for me, maybe it wouldn't have been traumatic for you, and vice versa. Trauma is trauma. And it's just like when we get cut, we bleed, like that darn paper cut. We get cut, we bleed. When trauma happens, there's a reaction. Our body has a reaction to it, and we can't control that bleeding any more than we can control the reaction, until we learn how to handle those triggers and build that reservoir. So then if something else happens, we know how to handle it better.
Exactly. And then we can kick into healing mode.
Yes.
Automatically.
And our body knows how to do that. Sometimes we just have to kind of guide it in the right direction, and it goes from there. It knows what to do. We train it really to stop doing it with our negative self-talk, like we talked about earlier. So if we can change that around.
And suppressing everything.
Yes.
Not bringing it to the surface, all of that. We stop our body to do what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like.
So cry it out.
Yes. Yes. What I was going to say is, I feel like sometimes these, the self-help people and inspirational people, sometimes I feel like there's that missing piece of, just think positive and, be happy. And, I'm all for positive thinking. I'm all for changing your mindset. But I feel like if you're just stuffing those feelings and pretending you're happy, your subconscious, your body knows, it's back there going, you are such a liar. This is not okay. Like, and so we can't really heal until we let ourselves feel those negative things, cry it out, scream it out. I've written letters to people that they will never see because they were burned the minute I was done with it, but I got it out. I allowed myself to be angry. I allowed myself to be sad. I allowed myself to feel hurt and disrespected and lied to and cheated on and all of those things. We are human, and emotions are there to show us what needs healed or what needs to be worked on or noticed. Negative feelings aren't negative. How we react to them, how we react to that anger can be good or bad, but the emotion itself isn't.
Yes, I completely agree. There is a missing link.
It's been a true pleasure having you here.
It was wonderful being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's me again. Just wanted to make sure you're following me, Tracy Lowry, on all social media, including Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, as well as following and subscribing and sharing this podcast, Multiform PTSD, on all of your favorite podcast platforms, as well as a video podcast on YouTube. So thanks for being here.